I am Michael T. Smith. This is the Church of, and here is your message for the week of December 16, 2024. In a series on favor, this is TCO number 33. Hard to believe that. I was talking to my dad this past weekend. I don't even know what day it was. 150 NEMs, 33 TCOs here, 100, for those of you paying attention at home, 183 hours of articulating and digging and excavating, if you will, the mystery of Christ. And I got so much more in the tank, and so I'm thrilled. But we're talking about favor, forgiveness, and the flow. Really, in these first parts, we're on part 5 today, dealing with favor. And just, it's pushing now. It's starting to go. The first part woke you up and stirred you up. The second part kind of alerted you, okay, there's something coming. And as we got into the conclusion of last week, I looked over at my table, my family next to me, to your right and my left, the tears, right? Because it's now starting to get into the depth of the largeness of what this is. And we're talking about how life has favored each of us in different capacities, just by virtue of the when, where, who, and why of our lives, where we were born, when we were born, who we came from, why we were born. Were we a glorious expectation, or were we seen as some sort of punishment or some sort of harassment? And all those things shape the favor status, the good fortune status of our lives. We receive that good fortune kind of from God, even though it didn't. It comes from God, but that good comes from God. I used to say that God is good in the sense that God was actively in an active state of being good, and I realize God is goodness, right? That God is love, God is goodness, and so the goodness that comes to us in this life, an allocation of all the goodness known in the cosmos, in the universe, which we have, which seem to come to us randomly, this good fortune. But if we, sometimes it can feel targeted. What's interesting is we're sensitive to misfortune. That misfortune often feels targeted, like this happened to me because I've not made the gods happy, or what did I do wrong to deserve this? And we're able to zero in on misfortune. God, what are you trying to do to me? But kind of the generic good fortune of our lives, we're often blind to it, as is kind of a universal plight of human frailty. So we're talking about, last week we ended with this idea of how this random fortune that comes to us seemingly out of nowhere actually sets the foundation. It sets a trajectory for our accountability to walk in the second type of favor, which is human favor. That God, that goodness comes from God. It's been issued by the Department of the Treasury. It comes to us through life and through circumstance and through situation. We don't have time to rehash all that. But out of that which has befallen us, out of the dominoes that have fallen to create the favor station, the good fortune station of our lives, out of that comes an accountability. Out of that comes a responsibility, and out of our active stewardship of that good fortune, it actually creates the random good fortune in the lives of others, and we'll talk about that. And really the essence, and we'll move forward here now, is the responsibility, you'll catch this in your notes, of the favor more. I like that, the favor more, and I have it in my notes as favor-more. I consider myself a favor more person. But a favor more person, as favor more people, to at all times be sensitive to those who are favor less. And I have, again, favor less in my notes, favor-less, that nobody is favorless, the absence of favor, and nobody is favorful, right, totally. But certainly we look and say, there are those who are favor more, and there are those who are favor less, and the responsibility to be sensitive, the responsibility of the favor more to be sensitive to the favor less. This strikes at the heart of Christ, right? This speaks to the essence of Christianity itself, and it is true that the favor state of our life. One of my favorite songs is Frank Sinatra. That's life, right? You're flying high in April and crash down in May, right? That's life. You're on top one day, you're on the bottom the next day. One day you're the fly swatter, the next day you feel like the fly, and that happens to us. And the favor state, the good fortune state of our lives, of every life, right? It ebbs and flows. Right, so sometimes it's high tide. The tide is high, and it feels good to be me. It feels good to be in my life. And then other times the tide is low, and it's just dry shoreline. And where's all the magic? And it feels a little rougher to be us. But though the favor status, the FQ, the favor quotient in every life, the good fortune in every life, in every life it ebbs and flows. No life is at any time favor entire, right? Nobody would ever say my life is entirely on all dimensions. I mean, maybe there's a day, maybe there's a moment, right? Maybe there's a place of high. It's like, oh my gosh, like they say, the 12 seconds in every house when all the laundry is done, right? It's like all the laundry is done. It's really not done if you're standing there clothed, waiting by the dryer, because that's fresh laundry that's got to happen. And so maybe there are moments in life where everything is aligned, and I absolutely have zero problems. And part of that is we're usually on a high from some good thing that has come to us, some good crashing wave of good fortune that has momentarily, taken out of the front of our minds that which is waiting for us on Monday or whatever. But at no time is any life favor entire, and at no time is any life favor empty. And so when we think about where we are in the world, you as an individual, me as an individual, 7.5 people in the world, the most favored person at any time on planet Earth is a child, and it's always shifting moment by moment. Who's the most favored child? I mean, skipping down the road, a sidewalk chalk, whatever it is, or kicking a plastic cup, a wax Coca-Cola cup in a village, I mean, the most favored. And then just in a moment, you fall down, you skin your knee. I mean, so man, it's like I was number 1, and then I've fallen in the ranks, like Mario Kart. You get spun around one time, and now you're in number 12. And then also the most favored deprived, right? 7.5 billion is also a child, and some child going through pain. Not just pain, but a child going through trauma and abuse and cruelty by the very hands of those who are supposed to be bringing that child goodness. And so we understand that, but at no point on the top is the kid at slot number 1 out of 7.5 billion favor entire, and at no point in slot 7.5 out of 7.5 is somebody's life entire favor empty. But understanding this and living from this, I have put forth, suggested, is the essence of Christianity itself. And we looked last week, concluding with the examination of Christ on the days, that if we want to understand Christ, not the weaponized version of Christ that we've inherited through transactional religion, but if we want to understand actual Christ, somewhere between the historical Christ, the biblical Christ, the mythical Christ, somewhere in there, the actual Christ, central to comprehending that mystery. Central to understanding what we mean by Christ and all the meaning that is in that, meaning that is advanced by the Bible and obscured by the Bible, meaning that is advanced by the historical record and obscured by the historical record, meaning that is advanced by the mythical record and undermined by the mythical record. But if we want to understand that Christ mystery, we must understand the juxtaposition or the competition or the comparing and contrasting, right, of the days where the cup of his good fortune was overflowing, and the days and moments where the cup of his good fortune was running dry. And when the cup of his good fortune was overflowing, he was sharing with everybody, feeding people, healing people, 3 days in line, calming waves, raising the dead, comforting people, reaching in, telling them their secrets, patching up their self-esteem when his favor was. But then when he said, the Christian scriptures record the statement, I'm so sad, so depressed, and feel so alone that I think I might die from it. At that moment, still having compassion on the sleeping disciples, still on the cross, comforting the man afraid to die. When his cup was the driest, was he ever favorful? I don't know if he was ever favor entire in the sense that there was never any enemies, there was never anybody after his life. I don't know, but there were certainly overflowing days of good, the days of wine and roses, or the days of water to wine, and then there are the days where surely, with the loss of family, or with the betrayal of family, or with the rejection of key people, or the that he was favored. But even then, he gave out of and greeted the world with his sense of good fortune forward. So we must at all times take stock, right? Take stock of our lives in this context. where am I today? Wherever I am today, whatever the story of my life today, the story of my life, the story of my life, when I first started wasn't that great, and then there was a good, 6-year run that was good, and then there was a good 4-year run that was good, and then there was kind of a 8 or 10-year run that was not so good, and then there was a 10 or 20-year run that was good, and then there's been like a 8-year run. But taking stock of it today, we decide to greet the world. We decide to meet the world with a keen sense of our good fortune, a keen awareness of our good fortune, and we decided to put that forward, that as I meet the world, I don't meet the world with the nagging of my sense of misfortune. I meet the world and greet the world with this overwhelming gratitude, this humbling gratitude for where I am in the world, that I may not be slot number 1, but I'm not slot number 7.5 billion. And if I really think about it, I'm in the top billion, maybe the top 750 million richest, most favored endowed people on planet Earth. I mean, if you really think about that in context, how good life is, what a gift life itself is. Greeting the world as Christ, greeting the world not out of our frustration, not out of our sense of abandonment, not out of our sense of loss, right? Greeting the world out of the humbled sense of our good fortune. That now is spiritual exercise. That those who encounter us in this world, their first interaction, what they're greeted with first, what they meet first, the first thing. The first thing of our lives that they touch, the first part of who we are that rubs off on them is our humble sense of and grateful sense of being better off than most. I mean, that's how you go through the world. That's how you go through traffic. That's how you go to the grocery store. That's how you sit at your kitchen table. That's how you go to work every day. You go not with a sense of how wrong and how crappy, like one guy said in the Fairley Brothers, he said, "How's life?" This old guy on the street, this old guy said, "How's life?" He said, "It's taken forever," which is such a great line. Another one I like is, "How's life?" And the guy says, "Well, each day is better than the next," which is such a great thing. It's like its life is getting worse as time goes by, but you don't greet life that way. You don't greet life with a fixation on where you feel favored, deprived, or favor impotent. No, you greet life, and the richest lives, the richest people, the people at the farthest front of the line, they greet life, they greet the world, they interact with the world with a sense of their good fortune forward. That those who encounter us, their first thing they encounter is the fact that we live seated with this humble recognition and appreciation and awe that we are better off than most, and we're all better off than most despite our circumstances. And that's tough, right? But that's the Christ mystery, how despite his circumstances, there was still something to draw out of. And we say, well, maybe not draw out of him, and that's the mystery, right? That maybe he wasn't drawing out of his humanity, maybe he was drawing out of his divinity. Maybe you and I have to tap into that same well, right? That abides inside each one of us, each human. Now, it is fit, right? It is fitting that those who know us the most, those who are closest to us, that they also know our abiding despair. I'm not saying that you should fake life. I'm not saying that you should just put on a happy face when it's not. I'm saying even in your worst thing, just lay them all out. Your worst thing in the world. You just lay out the worst thing in the world. You will find that when it came to the allocation of favor, you got an unfair share of goodness going on here. But those that know you closest, those that are closest to you, they will be intimate with your abiding despair. And I like that phrase, abiding despair, because I don't want you to hear what I'm saying today and say, well, I don't know what kind of Ozzie and Harriet, Leave It to Beaver, Huxtable life you're talking about. That's not real life. No. It is real life because in a dual reality of our yours and mine, and I don't know about the rest of the world, I'm just talking to you and me, right? You and me, we know, right, how exorbitant, how excessive, how imbalanced the favor, the FQ, the favor quotient, the favor status, the good fortune in our lives. We know what that is, but you and I also know the abiding despair. And you're not unique. Really, you're probably more unique in your favor and good fortune that's befallen you, and that outsized portion, that outsized allocation of good fortune that's come into your life. You're probably more unique in that expression, in that sense, than you are unique in the abiding despair, because the favor may not be equal across humanity. The favor allocation it's certainly not equal across humanity, but I guarantee you the sense of abiding despair, that is equal, because it's part and parcel of being human. The abiding despair, what do I talk about? I'm saying that I can tell you I am the richest man you know, and I can tell you, and people who are intimate with me, my wife, certainly my dad, unfortunately, some with my children, you try to protect them from the ugliness of the world, but people that know me closely know my abiding despair, and they know that generally. I have that the same way you do. What is that? What do you mean, the general despair of being human? That melancholy, right? That infinite sadness, that melancholy, that infinite sadness, that malaise, right? That is part and parcel of the human condition. That sometimes we go and we fake it and we go and then we crap out because there's an emptiness and a despair inside us that is often hard to get your head above water, right? Some of us feel that more than others, but it's not that some of us have it more than others. It's some of us are more attuned to that despair than others, and a lot of that despair that we feel internally is often what's mirrored back to us as we look at the futility of the world. And this is a general. Some are blessed to ignore it. Some are blessed to know that it's there, but to not fixate on it and focus on it. And I find they're generally thriving a lot more in day-to-day life than I am. So that melancholy, that infinite sadness, right? That malaise, that's part and parcel of the human condition. That's the general despair that humans carry. But then there's a specific despair, that which is unique to you, right? The human condition, it sucks to be human sometimes. It's tough to be human sometimes. Loneliness is an abiding part of the human condition. People with scores of friends, scores of people around them. Loneliness, we keep misdiagnosing loneliness, thinking the remedy to loneliness is to pile more interaction and busyness on, and that's not escaping loneliness. Loneliness is this isolation that we have in the deepest part of us that longs for God, the deepest part of us that longs for transcendence, and we keep filling it in to find out it doesn't reach deep enough, and that's okay. It's okay to be lonely because, again, part and parcel to the human condition, but specifically how the chaos of this world, right? So I have my general despair because I'm a human. I have my specific despair, which is what? How the chaos of this world has left me personally grieved, or I'll tell you this, personally aggrieved, right? It's grieved me. It's left me aggrieved. It's the way this world can leave us has left me bereft, stolen from without apology, right? I have that. I have a whole story on that. We could really talk. If we want to swap pity party stories, we could do that all day long. Don't see much use to it. I mean, imagine sitting down with Jesus, well, my right-hand guy, he's a thief, and half these guys don't even believe in me, and my mother, believe it or not, she tells everybody that I was born of a virgin, that she had a virgin birth, but my dad has always looked at me with a side eye, and my brothers think I'm this, and, they tried to kill me when I was little, and as a matter of fact, you remember when all those babies were killed? That was because of him. He just started them off strong, but he's not going to lead with that. That's not how he greeted the world. That's not how love greets the world from its sense of melancholy and malaise, or from the sense of being bereft without cause, or bereft without apology, bereft without apology, stolen from, I've been taken from, and nobody ever said they were sorry, or I'm baffled as to why these things have befallen me. That we have that generally, and we have it specifically, right? Those who know us know that part of us. But those that know us, right? They know us intimately. They not only know our abiding despair, but they also know. They ought to also be able to perceive and comprehend that even in our general melancholy, even in our specific sad story, which you and I both have a sad story. We know we both have a sad story, and we could swap it one time. I'll tell you what happened, man. I called every night for a month. Yeah, we have a sad story. But even through that, it's important that those who know us intimately, those who know the depth of our sadness, those who know the sad story that we have, that is real, that has left us grieved and aggrieved, bereft without apology, baffled by why. But those who know us closely also should know that we consider ourselves blessed still. That this is the truth of my story. I have the general sadness that is abiding with all humans, that general loneliness, that general sense of isolation, that general sense of if I don't kick my legs today, I'm not going to get a breath, my nose above water enough to take a breath. They know that generally. They know that specifically. But those who know us also know, well, yeah, Mike's depressed, and Mike's sad, and Mike's always beneath, and Mike's always heavy, Connie would say. But Mike still considers himself blessed, right? That he's blessed still, that our lives are kissed by heaven still, that those who know us intimately, that know the sadness, that know the reason, the grief, the death, the loss, the betrayal, the sadness, the rejection, the shame, those who know us intimately and know that shadow self and all the savagery of the shameful savagery that our own free will has wrought in us. Those who know us, they know that sadness, but they also know we consider ourselves blessed. They also know that we consider our lives heaven-kissed. They also know that we are at all times able, at all times willing, at all times even known to utter a hallelujah anyhow. Why? Even those who know the depth of our sadness, they still, when they get to the bottom of the barrel, they still see that even in the depth of our despair, we greet the world with a sense of favor forward, a sense of good fortune forward. This, we have suggested, is the essence of the contemplative life, the essence of really what it means to know God. So many have written me. That's beautiful. So many have talked to me and said, look, I just want to be a spiritual person. I want to be a spiritual man. I want to be a spiritual woman like my mom, like my dad, like my grandfather, like my grandmother, like my uncle. I want to be that spiritual person. I want to know what it means to walk with the Lord in light and in truth. I'm inching you closer to it here. What it means is to be able to sit with the mystery of Christ and to contemplate the juxtaposition that Christ on those overflowing sense of good fortune days greeted the world with a sense of good fortune, and on the most depleted days greeted the world with a sense of good fortune. And this now becomes a contemplative exercise. Lord, let me embrace my weeping. Let me know my sorrow. Let me feel the shared suffering of the world. Let me weep with you, who is continually touched and beset by this shared suffering of the world. Let me know that, but let all those who greet me, all those who meet me, even those closest to me, and know the depth of my pain, may they know above all things that I'm grateful still, that I see myself as blessed still, which leads us back now to what I promised at the beginning of the series, that this is going to fundamentally change our perception of Christ. The true estimation of Christ is going to supplant the false. The goal of this is that it will supplant the co-opted weaponization of Christ with something new. For most people in the church, right, because of the flawed foundation of the doctrine of the church, Christ is merely a distant fire ablaze. They see the light of Christ from across a distance, that there is a fire there, and I see it, and I sing to it, and I praise it, and I worship it, and I tell people about it, and I evangelize about it, but it's completely contrary to who Christ is. They can see, so many in the church can see the light of Christ, but the smoke, right, of the false weaponized gospel keeps us from feeling the warmth. We see a light in the distance, but we're too far to be warmed by the truth of it. Side note here, if you still see Christ as the fulcrum upon which eternal destinies, fulcrum like a seesaw, right? You got your, seesaw, right? My mama told your mom, right? Whatever it is. And 15 cents, see the elephant. She jumped so high, she touched the sky. She didn't come back until July 4th, right? If you say, well, the essence of Christ is that's where eternal destinies teeter. You're going to heaven, you're going to hell. You're going to heaven, you're going to hell. If you still hold to that, how can I reach in that cage of deception and set you free? What will it take for you to shed that arrogance, that antichrist arrogance? It's the hardest conversation you'll ever have with yourself to say, oh my God, I have taken the truth of God and the truth of Christ, privatized it, co-opted it, pretending no one else had it, and then tried to sell them back like the Paper Street Soap Company. I'm going to sell back God to you that I've taken from you. And if you still think, well, you got to have Christ because if we don't have Christ, we're going to hell. If that's still where you're stuck, you can see the light, but you've not been warmed by it. Why? Because false doctrine stands in the way. And I encourage you to have the boldness to say, enough of this. I'm not going to take this anymore. I'm not going to listen to this anymore. I'm not going to abide this anymore. Because it's insane and it's inhumane and it's nonsense. It's false. It's a co-option. Well, Mike, what is your estimation of Christ? What do you truly believe? Well, glad you asked, my friend. Glad you brought that up. Glad you brought that up. You never chase chickens. I believe at the essence, right, somewhere between the biblical, the historical, the mythical is the actual, right? That at the actual there's a man, that man as an incarnation of love, as the incarnation of love, as the incarnation of God. I'll give that to you. A mystic, a messiah, a guru, a good man, a great man. I'll give that to you. Whatever that is there, I believe it's an incarnation of love. I believe it's the incarnation of love. I believe Christ is a personalized incarnation of God. Maybe not the exclusive only place God has been seen, but certainly a place where God should be more fully revealed in my tradition than in other traditions. That's just my conviction. But I do believe he was a person that lived and taught and embodied true religion. And true religion is a way of seeing, of sensitized seeing and acting compassion. What do you mean, true religion? True religion, when you say, Mike, when you say we should walk in true religion, I mean a way of sensitized seeing, right? And I'm saying way, capital way, a way of sensitized seeing, a way of active compassion, that Christ lived this sensitized seeing of people around him, this active compassion of people around him. It was so radical and so pure, his sight and his action, his compassionate action were so right and so pure that it took on a miraculous nature, a miraculous dimension. And that his way of living, his radical vision of living, of seeing people and saying, look, what all they're doing at the temple and the sacrifices, that's not God. God is really seeing people and acting compassionately towards them, and he lived that so purely that his love took on a miraculous dimension, a miraculous expression, a miraculous nature, and it healed, and it delivered, and it multiplied, and it did these miraculous things. And his radical vision of living was so authentic and affirming that it became attractive to the masses, that they saw this radical way of living, and it's like it recognized the truth in them, recognized the truth in him, and the multitudes were drawn to it. They were attracted to it. And I believe this attractiveness to the multitude posed a threat to the religious power structure, the political power structure. And that this Christ, this Jesus, living this way, not in the weaponized fairy tale that we've been told, but in the radical expression of true religion and love, that it was so radical it drew the masses, it became a threat to the religious power structure, it became a threat to the political power structure, and it reached a boiling point. And one of two things were going to happen. Either A, the masses were going to take Jesus and make him the new champion of a new religio-political power structure. They were going to say, you're the new king, which he did not want. Or the masses were going to turn in rebellion on the existing power structure and religious political power structure, and they were going to destroy it, which Jesus did not want. Why? Because Jesus refused to become a figurehead for the very systems his life served to contradict. He repeatedly refused every time they tried to exalt him. Why? Because he understood the corruptness and the corruptibleness of human systems. That all they were going to do is say, you know what? You're the new king now. Let's get rid of these people and make you the king. That's bad. Or he said, let's just destroy this other people. You're right, Jesus. This way of living is so much better than what they're talking about. We'll destroy them. And Christ wanted neither of those options. And his refusal to accept, his refusal to become a pawn, left him open to the powers that existed. And I'll even give you that these religious and political powers that sought to destroy him were inspired by darker forces. I'll give you that. They conspired against him. They executed him. Those powers worked, and they did. but I believe he raised again. Why do you believe he raised again? Well, either because he was truly love in human form, God in human form, or he was truly the Messiah sent to bring about a new way of religious and political and human thinking, or maybe he was just a truly good man, a truly pure saint, a truly pure mystic, that he was so pure and incorruptible, so uncontaminable, that death couldn't hold him. I'll give you any of those things. But that life still echoes, right? And I feel it and I perceive it as not a dead martyr thing, but as a living thing. Or maybe I believe in the resurrection simply because it is the order of all things. It is the order of the cosmos, that as one thing dies, another thing comes in its place. I believe that. Or maybe I believe in the resurrection as a witness to this world, that the religious and political corrupt systems that continue to defeat the ways of true religion and defeat human dignity, maybe the resurrection is no other thing than a symbol to the world and a message to the world that those powers will not always triumph. They will not always be able to degrade human beings. They will not always be able to corrupt and abuse by the exercise of their power. And so because of that, one of those reasons, somewhere in the middle of that, I believe he rose again. And out of that has become, my conviction, has become the source of true religion. That others around the world would follow the pattern of his life. They would embody love without yielding to the temptations of institutional power, that's what they would do. And while also holding to the promise of his resurrection, that there is coming a day in which we will no longer learn institutional warfare, religio-political warfare, justifying violence in response to violence and territory and creeds and all that other stuff. But there's coming a day in which the righteous not yet world systems, the righteous systems of the not yet world will supplant. And instead of putting all our human energy to conquer and to avoid being conquered, we will put it into ending suffering. This is my faith. This is my faith. This is what I think of Christ. But because the religio-political systems could not overcome the faithfulness of these followers, the faithfulness of those who continued to walk in this radicalized compassion as a contradiction to established religious and political systems, and they could not threaten or beat out or torture out the influence this man had on the heart of his followers. They discovered they could not tamp out their dedication through violence and persecution, so they decided to co-opt the man for the advancement of their religio-political power structure. And nations took him, and religions took him, and they consolidated power, and they broke off power, and they had factional power, and to today it's still a struggle for power, all rooted not in the man, but in the false weaponization, theft of the man. So that the church we know today, with its weaponized us-them conditional salvific doctrines, are really nothing more than the soon-sown tares that he said would come. That I'm introducing a way of true religion, of sensitized seeing, and of radical compassion that brings dignity to all. And it's not weaponized vertical religion where God's always angry and you got to make right, but the only thing there is to make right is to ease the suffering of the world. And immediately the soon-sown tares came in and said, no. We can't say that we killed the one that was teaching true religion, but we can say it was a sacrifice so that everybody could be forgiven. And now if you'll just sign here, initial here, sign here, we'll get the rest of the paperwork out to you, and you'll be on the good side too. It was easier to steal the caricature of the man for the preservation of those same systems, which is what's really sad. And here's the truth. Nothing about Jesus has anything to do with compliance or religion or any religion for the forgiveness of sins. I'll say it again. Nothing about Jesus has anything to do with compliance or some form of religion for the forgiveness of sins. That there's nothing in the story that has to do with, well, he had to die and you had to get on the right side and you had to receive the blood and you have to say that he's Lord and you have to deny this faith and sign up for this faith and raise your right hand and make the pledge and cut your wrist and all that kind of stuff and mingle the blood. Now you're in. Nothing that he had, nothing about him at all had anything to do with forgiveness. And here's the big thing. Jesus is not coming to your political party. He wants nothing to do with it. because everybody is still trying to take him for their side and make him a figurehead of institutions and structures that the essence of his life was a continual supplanting contradiction thereof. And it's not just religion. It's not just contradiction for the sake of being contrary. Well, whatever their religion is, I'm going to be against and I'll be like Christ. No, it's anything that would weaponize God, conditionalize salvation, and minimize human dignity is what he has to stand against. And in his day, those who his religion said was on the outside, these are the people that are good and these are the people that are bad, he went to them and said, I don't put you on the outside, I bring you to the inside. And we right now have different people on the outside, but we should also go to them. And not in this garbage of assassination and violence and justifying violence for righteous causes and all that other kind of stuff. You cannot claim any connection to Christ without that. No, well, he turned over the tables of the money changers. Yeah, I guess he did. One of the first instincts as we think about favor and living from that favor is to bristle under the sentiment of this feeling of favor impotence. That, Pastor Mike, I hear you, but there are things I want to do that I feel like I can't do. There's a life of generosity and expressing favor that I feel impotent there. And it's important. We must not allow the ways that we feel favor impotent to stand in the way of the flow of how we're really favor abundant. And this again is that sitting in stillness to find it. So many times we concentrate on the ways we feel incapacitated, right? I'm incapacitated in this area. I'm incapacitated in this area. I've got limited range of favor motion in this area. Instead of the ways that we're empowered. And note, these ways are always shifting, right? One day we might be tremendously fortunate in this area and not in that, but that could shift. So we should be constantly taking stock not of what we do not have, where we are favor limited, favor weak, favor impotent, but we should be constantly churning and looking at where we are favor forward, favor enriched. Because we're always making the same mistake. We're misjudging people's situations, and we're minimizing our capacity to express good. We wrongly perceive people we come across. They don't need any favor from me. There's nothing I could do to them. But the reality is we must be sensitive and unashamed. We must be sensitive to the Spirit inside us, because there are those who we perceive as, well, they've got it all. They've got it all together. Look at their family. Look at their this. Look at their that. But remember, nobody's 100% favored. And we're like, who am I? Who are you? You are a person whose life is heaven blessed and heaven kissed, and you live with that sense of good fortune out front. You have richness to bring to the table. We see people, we assume they have it all, but we underestimate the universal loneliness, right? The war of beneathness that all humans are in. Connie and I, we used to have tremendous financial resources. We were certainly not the richest people in the world. We're certainly not the poorest people in the world. But, to make a couple $100,000 a year, $200,000-$300,000 a year, that was a big deal. It's a big deal. We were doing okay. And the lavishness in which we blessed people, strangers and friends and family and people on the street and people across the world, and now our best effort is to just make sure that we squeeze out some penny somewhere, some dollar somewhere. I mean, there was a time we would just collect our change every year. There was a season we would just collect our change every year, just put it in a jar, and we would get money, and it'd be $8,000 in change that we say, well, we don't ever use this. We put it in a jar. We would collect it up and just go convert it into money and take it down to take care of the poor. I mean, we were favor rich in that area. Now when we would hear of a celebration or a marriage or whatever, to bless you, to bless you. Oh, it's a young couple getting married. Oh, a young man graduating from high school. Oh, man, we would bless you. And the problem is our heart is still there, but we're impotent, right? We don't have that resources. And it's hard to write out a $10 check Hard to the pride, maybe. Especially hard when you want to be a blessing just to be a blessing, and you're always saying, I wish it could be more, I wish this could be more. We're just not in that season. But I tell you what, beyond our presence, going to the place, knowing that everybody's bringing a gift for the wedding, or bringing a gift for the bar mitzvah, or bringing the generosity of our soul, the encouragement on our lips, the love and the openness and the non-judgmental spirit that we just want to wrap the arms of our heart around, and to love and to celebrate and to affirm. That's worth more than, so we're favor impotent in this area, but we're favor rich in this other area. We must consider the richness of our presence. Sometimes all you have to give is presence. Sometimes your presence is charity. Sometimes just being there, and not being there, just being there, your begrudging self, not being there leading with your abiding despair, but being there. Don't get me started. I got to be careful because it's emotional. The times we have wiped tears and put on a happy face and looked at clothes that are deteriorating and trying to do stuff and hair and blah blah blah, and say we got to go put on this face and walk into this place and hold our heads up high with holes in our shoes, right? And Con and I have known that's season, and to do that and to go and to not go in our shame, but to step in there in our brightness and in our love, and to say, who can we meet and know and pour into in this moment? Who is when it's over gonna say, who was that couple there? They just came, they encouraged me, man, they've spoken to my life. It's like I was talking to somebody that could see inside my soul and just said the exact word. That's what we do. Our presence, your words, right? Your words, your voice in the form of advocacy, in the form of identity. I identify with. I'm using my voice. I'm favor impotent over here, and I may not have this, and I used to be a place. Meet a guy on the street, and I can tell he's going through, and boy, there was a time I meet you, and we just come across a divine thing, and I'd have a job for you tomorrow. Let me see if I can put you, where are you living? Okay, you're on the streets. I got a house for you. I got 7 houses. We'll put you in one. We'll get you there. Are you, okay, we got that. What about your family? Let's see if we can get your kids counseling. There was a time I had just, pick a card, any card, and now I just greet, and I have nothing. I have nothing. I put a hand on your shoulder and look you in the eye, and just give you a hug and say, brother, I love you, and that's all I got. I don't have anything. I have $1, or I have this, or I wish but I tell you what, the love is there. You be careful out here, man. You take care of yourself, and just be safe. Why aren't you going to lead them to Christ? Man, lead them to Christ. What are you even talking about? Man? A lot of those folks have more of God than we ever did. Sometimes the favor that we have is non-silence. That we're just not going to let evil advance, right? Without saying, hey, I disagree, or I like them, or I love them. I was in a conversation one time, and these people kept making jokes about guys like this and guys like that and guys like this and guys like that. And I was like, oh, those are funny. What about guys like... And then I realized they were talking about a specific person, and they were just tearing this specific person down. I said, oh, no, that dude's my guy. No, I didn't realize that. Sorry. That guy's totally... Man, you can't say... we're just connected. Sometimes that's all you can do. Maybe your richness is just... I'm gonna just put people in a good light. Well, he's a scoundrel. He's this. She's that. They're awful. He's that. He did this. He's a daddy. He doesn't support his kids. Whatever. Well, yeah, that all may be true, but I try to look at people with Christ's eyes, and I say, well, yeah, but also, this is the story. Well, also, this is that, and I'm not saying that there aren't people that shouldn't do some of the hurtful things that they do, but I always try to step back and say, what is the story here? And everybody that's crucifying them, what have you done to hurt people? I've never done anything like that. Well, I think Christ would beg to differ. And I think we should always lead with a recognition of our fallibility, instead of leading with everybody else's flaws, a recognition of our the grace and good fortune that's come to us instead of depriving people of that other good fortune. This brings up an idea of material generosity. I think we're a little short. Let me look at my notes here. Nope, not going to do it. Because if I start this next line, then that'll be it. I don't know if you got anything out of what we're talking about here today, but there's a lot here. Someone say, you just talk a lot. You just use a lot of big words. Look, I'm just trying to sound extra photosynthesis, right? I don't know what the words mean. I'm just trying to sound that way. But I hope you can hear beneath what I'm saying. I'm trying to paint for you a picture of what this thing. I'm telling you what it isn't, but I'm not telling you what it isn't too. So you go attack. Oh, the church is bad. The doctors are bad. They're all down. No. I'm chipping away at what it isn't, so that you can see what it is. What it is to be the ongoing embodiment of that same love, to have a compassion and a sensitized seeing that is so pure and so radical, it takes on a miraculous form in people's lives. And we'll talk about that. I want to talk about tithing, because people have asked me about tithing, and I want to talk about, well, how do you think of that in the light of the Omega view, and what does that mean to you? And there's so much, but just on the material, not all favor is tangible, but not all of it's material. But I want to talk about that material side and how do we live with that in light of the Omega view. But that'll have to wait till next week. Thank you for just hearing me out. Thank you for your love, for your support. You show up week in and week out, maybe a couple times a month, and you go, man, you're really helping me see God clearer. Well, then I thank you for your just love and support of us. It means something to us for you to say, whew, this is impacting me, and I'm going to support. I'm going to support the shamans or the mystics or whoever you guys are, the pastors, whatever, that kind of help me see the world in a new spiritual way. And I thank you for that. But beyond that, more than that, the essence of our church is that you would go out and live this way. Live with this sense of richness. Live with this sense that generosity of soul. We'll talk about that next week. But that's really what we're doing here. The church we're building at the Church of is not bricks and mortar. It's not. The church we're building is an embodied love, an embodied, active, charitable compassion that goes out all over. And people say, who is that person? I'm a person who's aiming to walk in that true religion. So, amen. Amen. Peace, health, protection, preservation, soundness, abundance, aboveness, prosperity, favor, love, abide with you and yours. The ministry of angels, loaded with benefits. Believe to see the goodness of the Lord. We believe it, Lord, in our long lives, supernatural lives, that our lives carry the testimony of how you worked on a miraculous dimension toward us and through us toward this world. Peace on each one, lifting and light in each and every heart and home and circumstance. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Hope you got something. Hope you ate good. We're near something here. I hope beyond my clumsy words that God brings out the clarity to it, because it's here. God bless you. Make it a great week. Love you.